I'm sure you've heard your students say, I'm not good at taking exams, but how good are you at providing those exams? If you're simply creating exams to provide a grade, you're missing the entire point of examinations. That grade that they earn is a representation of how well they comprehend the information and how well you educated them. Welcome to Profess EMS, the podcast dedicated to educating, training, mentoring, and inspiring EMS educators and providers alike. Whether you're looking to grow as an educator or prosper as a provider, sit back, open those neural pathways, and let's get to it. Hey everybody, and welcome back to episode 5. This episode is brought to you by Master Your Medics. Outside of my role as education manager of Master Your Medics, I still work in the field as a provider and educator, and these thoughts, ideals, and statements do not necessarily represent those of my affiliations. So let's get into it. This is part 2 of a multi-episode that focuses on hybrid education. In the last episode, I discussed what hybrid education means and gave some examples of what facilitating that may look like. Today, I'm going to hit on assessments, how we assess students and how we assess ourselves as the educator. But first, there's some terminology you need to understand. While there are informal assessments such as discussions, monitoring, and other methods to attempt to gauge how well a student understands, these methods are subjective and not necessarily measurable. But what I want to focus on is truly assessing in ways that are measurable for the student and the educator alike. Formative assessments are those which are more low stakes, if you will. This could be a quiz, some general questions and answers, or some other type of activity. For me, hands down, one of my favorite ways of producing a formative assessment and what I believe to be some of my students' favorites is Kahoot. If you don't know what Kahoot is, go check it out. So this is non-biased. There's no disclosures I need to release. I'm just a huge fan and I advocate Kahoot, and I've been using it for many years. It has a free option or multiple, subscription services, which give you other types of different ways you can assess and whatnot. But overall, it is a free or very cheap and affordable way to gamify your classroom. So here's how I do it. As we discussed in the last podcast, if students are doing that synchronous or asynchronous content outside of the typical classroom, they've, engaged in the content. And so when they come to class, I'm expecting them to be at a certain level. So the content that I delivered, the objectives that I used to create that content, I will measure those same objectives based on the Kahoot. And then I'll kind of use that Kahoot as an overall evaluation to see, hey, where we're going to be at for the day. Did the students retain the information from the content? Is it maybe a muddy point that I need to clear up? Or, hey, are they crushing this area or are they doing poor in this other area? So that Kahoot is run as a game. So the question comes up and the students can use their mobile devices to answer the question. Well, then you can see instant feedback from your students of what their answers were. And another good thing too is whether you want to use it for a grade or not, the students can create, ambiguous names to where they're not able to be identified. So they're not scared to actually play and get questions wrong because maybe you don't actually know who that player is. It's kind of a way I like to recommend of not using it for a grade, but more of a kind of evaluation of where we need to go throughout the day. Okay, so if I've expected students to be at a certain level, okay, and I've planned out my lesson plan for that day for, hey, topics 1 through 5. Well, topic 1, hey, every time they seem like this is something we can hit on quick and easy. So when I'm running questions in that Kahoot game to see, hey, this is generally something we got to hit on really easy from the content, everybody seems to retain it well. Well, if the question's tied to objective 1, the whole class is underperforming, then I kind of need to know where I need to adjust my lesson plan for the day. Say, well, hey, I only had 15 minutes allotted for objective 1, but obviously I need to emphasize more on that today because they underperformed in the assessment. Whereas on down to say maybe topic 4, I was anticipating a whole hour in this area. Well, when I measured the objectives in that Kahoot game, the whole class crushed it. Like they obviously retained the information, they understood it. We can engage in some conversation about it within that Kahoot because that Kahoot is controlled by the instructor. So it even gives you some little mini breakout discussions. So maybe where I had for objective number 4, I was allotting 1 hour within the daily lesson plan. Maybe now I only really need to spend 20 minutes on it, and I've freed up other time to target towards other areas that might need more emphasis. Let's say it's could be Kahoot. You could do something as simple as give your students dry erase boards. They write an answer, bring it up. Something similar to Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune. I mean, you can gamify and create all types of creative and engaging formative assessments. Now, with summative assessments, these are evaluations that basically put it all together. These are high stakes and can essentially make or break the student. These can be exams, presentations, or perhaps full on, full out scenarios or simulation. These assessments or evaluations require high levels of thinking and overall analysis. But it doesn't necessarily mean that this is a fully comprehensive or cumulative exam like a certification. But it could be something like a module exam, such as an exam that evaluates a whole term or maybe a whole broad area. So maybe if you've had a whole class on anatomy and physiology, maybe that summative exam is the actual final for that class. Whereas, hey, you've got to have a 70% on this exam to overall pass the class. So major high stakes in there. Again, that can make or break it. So let's look at it this way. A formative assessment is kind of the ingredients, the little pieces that you're evaluating them. As you're kind of making a dish, maybe you've put a little bit of ingredients in, you're giving a little taste, like, okay, that blend tastes pretty good. Summative might be that whole dish. So all the ingredients that you put together from the formative assessments, that can be your summative exam. Like I'll put in all these ingredients to make a pie or dessert or whatever it may be. And then cumulative, that's the whole spread. That's everything that's spread out over the table. So just imagine that large Thanksgiving dinner where there's just turkeys and there's hams and there's all kinds of other things that are just making me really hungry now. But I think you get the picture. So formative, just that little integral part building up. So you got to be able to use those formative assessments to build up, building towards that summative exam. And then ultimately, the big one is that cumulative exam. All right, so here's some other, outside of Kahoot, here's some other technologies that I recommend. And again, I have nothing to disclose in this, just some things that I advocate for and I'm big fans of. Flipgrid. Flipgrid is an awesome program, and you can be used, it's all app-based, and students can use it to demonstrate things through video recordings or just audio. Okay, so a way that I could use it is I could record myself within Flipgrid making a demonstration video on how to do, say, a trauma assessment. So I would show one, and then the students in their own time could use that app to record doing a trauma assessment. And I've seen students do some really creative things with this, using a roommate, a spouse, a friend, a parent, large teddy bears, to one where a student just laid down a shirt, pants, shoes, because they lived alone, didn't have anybody to help them. So they just basically made a figurine out of clothes on the floor and ran through it. Okay, so then that way they're able to see one, do one, and then us as instructors, we can evaluate them. So then we can kind of see like, hey, are we going to evaluate them as an individual or just see collectively and maybe even subjectively how the entire class was doing? Maybe us as instructors were a little bit too vague in our instruction, or maybe we didn't really set the best example. Maybe we went too fast, maybe we went too slow, and maybe just, like our video editing wasn't that great. They were missing some things, whatever it may be. So like I've used Flipgrid to do such things as students practicing calling in um, medical reports to medical command, of doing their patient care handoffs, of doing windshield size ups, general medical assessments, even other simple things like knot tying and other things like from the rescue realm. Use Flipgrid for a whole versatile of different things. Another technology is Edpuzzle. I'm a huge fan of Edpuzzle. It's something I use very, very, very regularly and have for many years. So basically, you can take Edpuzzle and you can use any video that one that you've recorded, something even out of like Khan Academy, YouTube, anything. Um, and it does have some copyright filters in it to making sure that it is targeted towards there's not any type of explicit content on there. So all the videos that are on YouTube or whatnot have to be targeted towards children, because Edpuzzle is basically designed for K through 12 and higher education. So you can take these presentations and then you can create increments within the presentation where you can build in like a multiple choice, true, false, or open-ended discussion that you would manually grade. And you can just sit on any video, one that you've made, one that you found that you really like. So that way you're actually kind of building formative assessments within the presentation itself. It keeps it as a grade. It logs tracks of all their progress. And like I said, it's something they watch in Edpuzzle. It even has like security browsing in it, kind of, to where, if they bring it up, they can't run it in the background. They actually have to have Edpuzzle up, be watching it, engaging it. Like I said, you can crop the videos, you can add audio clips into it, add notes into it. It's pretty versatile what you can do in that. Another one is Microsoft Forms or Google Forms. Here you can build your own quick and easy quizzes. You can embed videos in them and copy and paste questions out of other quizzes that you've maybe done, and a whole lot of other things. You can use them as true, false, multiple choice, multiple answer, Likert scoring, a variety of formats for general answering. You can even put in branching options, such as if student answers C, then they'll go to this question. If they answered B, this condition will happen. So like one way I've used that for is like with the branching concept is evaluating certain types of algorithms. Like if we need ACLS, PALS, or CPR practice and kind of going through those different flows of algorithms, you can build out those quizzes such as in algorithms. Like one I've done in the past was, generate up a rhythm, like a screenshot from my simulate that shows, hey, this is a rhythm. What would you do in this condition? And then you got multiple answers. Done some to where, hey, now the next screen it goes to, if you got it wrong, the patient's in cardiac arrest, and now you're kind of working it as a mega code. Or just kind of do the goofy things, like if they marked it wrong, the next thing it goes to is a picture of the Grim Reaper and some wah, wah, wah sounds. But, get in there, tinker with those things out. All right, so the final point I want to make with this is how assessments actually assess us as the educator. Now, we don't want our students to fail, right? Well, of course not. That looks terribly bad on us if we have all these students failing, really bad pass rates. That's a direct reflection on us. But now, whether you believe this or not, we also don't want all of them acing our exams. That means we aren't challenging them enough and we've just simply made everything too easy. Now, it might look great that, all of our students are getting straight A's, but all the research shows if you're not challenging them when it gets to those exams that really matter, those exams are going to challenge them more than your general straight A quizzes. So when we're doing those things, we need to consider such things as cut scores. All right, now what a cut score is on assessments is basically the minimum score that is considered passing. Almost all certifications have some sort of a cut score on them, from taking a CPR test, ACLS test, up all the way up through, paramedic examination. There's a cut score on there somewhere saying that, yes, after this score, this means that that's good enough, if you will. Okay, now that can take some fine tuning to evaluate where that score is. It might take, some practicing about students in the past. Like I've used some exams in the past that didn't have a cut score. And then after I kind of did some validation on those exams, then could put in a cut score on them. Otherwise, to develop a cut score, you really need to involve multiple subject matter experts, not just create some wild guess of what the number is going to be. 70% seems to be a good general score, and that means that, hey, you've retained the majority of the knowledge. So you'll see a lot of exams at 70%, some even higher, 80, 90%. Another thing to consider is item analysis. Now, this is a bit trickier and can be a little bit complex. The good thing is nearly every learning management system, nearly every LMS that's on the market will just do this for you. So if you have an LMS and you've built your quizzes into it, this will do it all for you. Now, even such things as Kahoot, not generally in a free version, but in a paid service, there is some item analysis that can even be done in them. Edpuzzle is something you need to do on your own, but regardless, an item analysis basically goes through and can flag certain questions for you. Such questions can be flagged as those that the entire class got right. Again, if it's a question that 100% of your class is getting right, then that question is just too easy. But some things we need to consider here, if you have a class size of 1, we can't really do that type of item analysis. Generally, we need to have, a good pool of students to evaluate that from. Another question to be flagged is a question where the top performing students got the question wrong, but the lowest performing students got the question right. So that can mean such things as, hey, they were just completely wildly guessing on it. Maybe the item was not keyed correctly. Maybe it was just too vague. Maybe the question overall is just really poor. And another one, a question that the entire class got wrong. So that's ones we look at that like, hey, maybe it was actually keyed wrong. Maybe the students got it right, but the automatically logged answer key was marked wrong. Or was it taught right, or was it taught at all? Okay, now I review all my exams. All instructors, we should be reviewing all of our exams every time they're administered. Even if it's an exam that I've administered several times, I reviewed after every attempt. Okay, because sometimes I went in and I found questions that, hey, somehow they got put in there and they, by accident, they don't even relate to the topic being taught, such as maybe we auto-populated some questions out of a question bank, because face it, all of us as instructors have done that. If you say that you're building out every single exam and you're handpicking every question, I'm going to throw the flag and call BS on that one. Okay, and other times I found questions that, maybe I realized that I just didn't teach it well enough. Maybe it's something that I just completely overlooked in my lesson plan, or hey, maybe they're just not getting it and I need to go back and review that, or maybe it's just overall a bad question that I just need to pull out and not count it. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you're able to understand now that assessments help you grow as an educator, help your students prosper, and overall just help your academics flourish. So thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you all in the next one as we continue discussing hybrid education. Take care.